Labas and greetings from Vilnius in Lithuania. Now, is this city alpha or beta? It might sound like I'm being facetious, but no, there is actually a ranking of cities across the world, these major cities, where they categorize them into alpha, beta, and gamma. And that is what I'm going to discuss in this video with respect to the region that I promote, Relocation 2. If you're new to the channel, Labas again. I'm Connor Klein. I'm a former lawyer at the EU institutions, and now I help high-level men, normally from North and South America and Western Europe, with relocating for at least part of the year, or at least with a prospect of relocation in Central and Eastern Europe. So normally that's countries like here, Lithuania, or other countries in the Baltic states, Poland, and also just outside the EU in Moldova and Ukraine. So alpha or beta, that is the list. And alpha obviously has certain connotations, a really masculine, tough, driven, dynamic city, while beta sounds a bit weak and limp. But I assure you, when we get into it, it won't be that kind of dichotomy. And it is important, I find, when talking to my clients who decide to move to the region or consider moving to the region, that they understand exactly what kind of cities are on offer in this region. And it could be that a different part of the world is going to be a better fit for them. So to help you with maybe making that decision for yourself, we're going to look at alpha, beta, and even gamma cities. So let's go.
SAR Experience.
So every few years, the Globalization and World Rankings Research Institute publishes a list of alpha, beta, and gamma cities. And basically what they're looking at is the kind of global stature, regional stature, the interconnectivity of these cities. And I think it's interesting to look at the list and give you a better impression about what your life would be like if you came to some of the cities in this region, in New Europe, emerging Europe, as opposed to other cities you might also be familiar with across the globe. So let's go and look at the first category. They actually divide up the alphas into several subcategories. So we got the alpha plus plus, and that is only going to be two cities. That is New York and London. And it is important to realize that if you're looking for an experience like being in New York or London, you're only probably going to find it in New York or London. So you probably are not going to be super interested in relocating out of those two if you're already in one of them. For example, if that is really what you are looking for, these are the global super cities in terms of prestige, power, business, culture, and they are huge meccas in a sense for attracting people from all over the world to go there and seek their fortunes. So they would be the kind of two cities on the top tier in this ranking. So let's have a look through it and see where we can find some cities from the region and the countries that I promote here. So looking at the list, none of them are in the Alpha Plus. We got Paris. It's a city I obviously compare the cities in this region to, and as a contrast, and you got Tokyo and Singapore there. But when we get into the Alpha, just the Alpha category without the pluses or the minuses, we have cities like Amsterdam, Brussels, and there we have Warsaw. Now Warsaw is becoming the de facto capital of the region that I refer to, because it is a significant city. It has a population of over 2 million. It has very good infrastructure. The Polish economy has been doing phenomenally well for more or less the last, we could say 30 years at this point, definitely for over the last 20. And it is becoming the de facto commercial capital of the region, in particular with the Russo-Ukrainian war, because a lot of Ukrainians have gone there, and it has become increasingly difficult to promote Kyiv, for example, or maybe Minsk could have been a potential rival in Belarus, but because of the geopolitics of the region, we're seeing that Warsaw has become the main city. It also is being connected now by Rail Baltica all the way up through the Suwałki Gap to Vilnius, the capital of Lithuania, and up into the Eastern Baltic. So you got Riga and You've got Tallinn. I'm going to touch on those a little bit later as well. But for sure, it is an alpha city. It's an increasingly important city. It is big. It is increasing the economy. The house prices are going through the roof. Actually, at the moment in Warsaw, I was a little bit shocked when I was doing my research about real estate in Warsaw, just how pricey it is to get on the property ladder there for people who live in Poland. So bear that in mind. It is a country that is increasing quite quickly, and you will find a city with a lot going on and a lot of the comforts and services that you would expect from a city that size if you're in Western Europe or if you're in North America or somewhere else across the globe. And increasingly, it is going to become more important as a city. So that is in the same category. As I said, in Amsterdam and Brussels, Chicago, LA, they put in the same categories there. However, just be aware that it is not London, it is not New York. You have to realize that those cities are very unique. Also, another thing to remember, and it's probably going to be very important to you if you haven't learned the local language, that in many of these cities, whilst they might be globally important, the general population might not either speak good English or might actually not really want to speak good English. There's always been a little bit of a reputation of the French, for example, in Paris, that they don't really want to speak English, even if they do. And I would say in Warsaw, the level of English is quite high. However, if you move there, then you have to be cognizant of the fact that most Poles actually don't want to socialize in English. And if you don't learn Polish, you will have a tougher time in terms of integrating than maybe you would find in a city like obviously New York or London, since they're both English speaking anyways, but could be a lot tougher than even in a bigger city like Paris, for example, where there might be those kind of communities already. It's in the same, looking down through the list, we have the Alpha Minus, just a different subcategory below. You have Prague there, another city in the region. They put it below Warsaw. I would also agree with that. I think it's less internationalized and a little bit less connected, although it is also in the center of the continent. Well, geopolitically, at least Prague, maybe not geographically, technically, if we say Europe goes all the way to the Ural Mountains, but it is further west than Warsaw. And you see, definitely it is probably for me, I would put it as the second city in terms of like being interconnected and international. As a big city, it is smaller than Warsaw. You have Berlin there, which kind of surprised me they put Berlin in Alpha Minus, because I would say that in terms of interconnectivity, Berlin is the capital of Europe's economic powerhouse, which is Germany. And even though it was held back a lot by the fact that East Germany was in the Warsaw Pact, it was communist, it has in the last 10 years really dramatically increased in terms of its economy and in terms of its internationalization. It is super famous. I would say actually I would put it higher than Warsaw in terms of internationalization and being interconnected, Berlin. But in this ranking, that's where they put it. I see my homeland, Ireland, the capital is there. Ireland is the headquarters for many global companies as well. Apple, for example, or Google have big operations there. So you do have that international element and business connectivity definitely in Ireland's capital. So they put that in the same category. Looking down to the list, we get to the betas, the beta cities. You don't want to be in a beta city, right? Well, Bucharest, beta apparently. Well, it's a beta plus. Budapest, Hungary's capital, and Romania's capital are all there. They're all betas apparently. Don't think their leaders would be too impressed with that categorization. We have Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine. I think with the Russia-Ukraine war, it makes sense that it is not as internationally connected as it was beforehand. And what its potential actually is, because Kyiv is a big city, bigger city than say Warsaw. It's probably somewhere around 4 or 5 million, even with the Russo-Ukrainian war. So it has potential, but for now, definitely the Russo-Ukrainian war has held it back. Plus, obviously, the economic development in Ukraine is nothing like it has been in Poland, for example. And you have a few American cities as comparison. You got Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, the Auckland there, Barcelona. Kind of surprised that they put those cities together, but this is the ranking. I would say that Bucharest probably has the most potential to go further. It's a bigger city than Budapest, and it is the biggest city and most important city in that kind of Balkan, edge of the Balkan region. So if you're interested in going there, then Bucharest is a good option. And the level of English is very high, actually, I would say, in Bucharest. Going down through the list here, we got the ones that are just beta. They put Almaty. I have a soft spot for Almaty. I love the city. It is the commercial capital of Central Asia. It is the second city of Kazakhstan. It's actually the biggest city. It's as I said, the commercial capital of the region, but the political capital was moved to Astana, which is further to the north in Kazakhstan, just off the steppes. But definitely it is a city that I would say that if you don't speak Russian, which is one of the two official languages of Kazakhstan, the other one being Kazakh, you will probably struggle a bit in Almaty. More educated people do speak English, and definitely if they're working in international business. However, it is a lot harder to just go there and use English. But definitely the quality of life in terms of the economic development is reasonably high, but not as high as you're going to see, say, in a Warsaw or in a Prague. You have other cities there like Bratislava, Cape Town, just looking down through them quickly, Helsinki, and Rio de Janeiro, surprising, the same one. And Sofia, we'll say, the capital of Bulgaria, is in that category. Definitely it is less internationalized or connected than, say, the capital of Romania, the neighboring country, Bucharest there. So for sure that makes sense to me. And then we got the beta minus, you got Belgrade and Stuttgart. I see, I'm just looking through cities that might be generally in Europe. And then we got gamma. It's probably not even worth looking down that far. I see you have Tbilisi in Georgia as one city there, Baku. You've actually got Riga. They put it as a gamma minus. That also surprised me. Riga, it is the biggest city, the biggest capital city in the Eastern Baltics. That's in the European Union. So we got the three Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. The biggest city in the region should be St. Petersburg, but of course that's in Russia. So completely different kettle of fish nowadays with the Russo-Ukrainian war. And you have other cities like Helsinki in the region or Stockholm. So definitely those three cities, and Riga is definitely less internationalized or connected or economically developed as, say, Stockholm. However, it is also growing quite quickly. Again, it was part of the Soviet Union, so it was held back economically for a long time. And they have built the biggest airport in the Eastern Baltic area and the three Baltic states in Riga. You're going to have Rail Baltica connecting the whole thing in the future in the next 10 years. Eventually, you're actually going to have a tunnel under the Gulf of Finland between Tallinn and Helsinki that will run all the way down to Riga Airport and then down through Lithuania, Vilnius, and down into Poland, Białystok, and to the capital Warsaw. So this is all going to be connected up. And I would say that it is the biggest city in the regional metropolitan area, is about 1 million. So if you're looking for a city that's not super big, it's not Warsaw where it's going to be a few million, but something that's closer or just a little bit under 1 million, then Riga can be a really interesting option for you. In terms of internationalization, it's going to be less connected, less in terms of probably the level of English, although you'll get by reasonably well in the beginning using English, though I have to say between the three Baltic states that the level of English is probably the best in Estonia. It is a country that is well known for being open to innovative foreign investment, and the IT sector have had some success over the last 20 years with that, and it's probably the city where it is the most kind of internationalized in that sense in the region compared to, say, Vilnius, Kaunas, or Riga. I bring clients to the Baltics quite a lot in the last year. Riga also has a lot of interesting projects. I made a video about the real estate market. You get residency. These countries are part of the Schengen common travel area as well, and you can get that, and which is important if you are not an EU citizen. If you're EU citizen, obviously you can go and live in any of the three Baltic states or Poland without any visa or anything. But if you are a non-EU citizen, say you're American, a Brit, a Canadian, a South African, an Australian, a Hong Kongese, someone from Latin America, Brazilian, whatever it happens to be, then if you invest a minimum of 250,000 euros, that's going to be about 280,000 US dollars in real estate, then you can apply for residency, and later on you can consider getting citizenship, although that is a long time horizon. So there are those opportunities there to set up your life in the region. And in terms of internationalization, the experience you're going to have, remember that there's only one New York and only one London. So if that's the kind of experience you're looking for, then those are the two cities. However, if you were looking for a region that is developing and catching up to Western Europe and North America at a rapid pace, the economy of Poland, for example, is expected to overtake the United Kingdom in terms of GDP per capita sometime in the 2030s. Of course, a lot could change in between now and then. Maybe the gets its act together and starts increasing again post-Brexit, but most likely that will not happen, and Poland will actually continue its current trajectory, and extrapolating out, they would actually have a higher GDP per capita. So getting in to a region while it is on the way up. There are a lot of other things to consider in terms of quality of life, not just the interconnectivity, but also things like the value for money. I have a video about that. I did that as the last video on the channel. Again, this region is going to be better value for money than further to the west in Europe or in North America. Then you've got, often comes up with my clients discussing safety. Of course, even if you live in a relatively dangerous country, you could live in a very safe part of it. However, here in this region, the crime rates, especially in terms of petty crime, are a lot lower than you're going to see typically in North America or in Western Europe or in this old Europe part. And of course, if you are a single guy, which is the bulk of my viewership, then there is no real substitute for the famed beauty of the women in the countries that I bring my clients to. So the 3 Baltic states, they are actually in the top 5 countries for the most models per capita in the world, including Estonia being number 1. See, the US is not number 1 for everything. Definitely not for number of beautiful models that you will see walking on the streets of Tallinn, the capital of Estonia, and they may have a different set of values that might be more compatible with you, depending on what you are, of course, looking for in general. Not for everybody. If you're a male feminist, probably stick to Western Europe or North America, or really stick to the core Anglosphere. But if you're looking for something a little bit different and you are attracted, like all men are, and at least initially, by the visuals, then this is the region that is going to be the most interesting for you. You will have to sacrifice a little bit in terms of maybe the level of infrastructure, although that is increasingly less of an issue. Sometimes people think that, do they have electricity? Maybe they've watched, I'm going to pick on Bald and Bankrupt because that was kind of a legendary channel from 5 years ago where he goes to the kind of most dilapidated parts of this region. He used to come around to this region quite a bit, and that is becoming less and less of a stereotype that has any real semblance with reality in the region. There's a little bit left, but it's not that much, and you can probably find almost the same kind of places if you search for them probably in New York or London. Let's be frank about it. If you want to find poverty porn, you can probably find it anywhere. So those stereotypes are on the way out. You will sacrifice a little bit in terms of probably you may have to consider learning the local language if you really want to integrate and do as well as possible in terms of making business connections, and probably on the local dating scene, depending on the country. That's particularly relevant to say somewhere like Poland. If you're willing to invest in those things, or you're willing to take a hit on them, then this can be the region that is for you. And I encourage my clients in general to consider spending at least 3 months in the region. Perhaps you don't want to spend all winter unless you really like the cold and stuff. So that is kind of an overview of what to expect in terms of the level of development and interconnectivity and internationalization of the cities that I bring my clients to in general. We come and we live an unforgettable week together on my in-person insider experience known as the Zara Experience. And in the last couple of years with the Russo-Ukrainian war, I've been focusing on other countries than before. So I've been bringing my clients to some of the cities that we have mentioned in today's video. They will be Warsaw in Poland, Riga in Latvia, Vilnius in Lithuania, Tallinn, the capital of Estonia, Almaty and Astana in Kazakhstan, Chisinau, Moldova, which is not mentioned in this. Definitely it's going to be less developed than the other cities in the region. So that's what I will say about alpha versus beta and actually gamma cities in general. For me, a little bit of a silly kind of framing, especially with the way it sounds. However, there is definitely something of value to extrapolate out of it in terms of the kind of lifestyle that you can expect when you come to this region, or if you decide to go somewhere else that's a better fit for you. Come and enjoy a beautiful, peaceful, tranquil, old world architecture city in this part of Europe, like Vilnius. Could be Kaunas, the second city of Lithuania as well. You're gonna need to know where to go, and I have an abridged version of my hospitality guide to help you With that, if you decide to come to a city in this region, there are a few cities in the abridged version. It's down below as a free PDF in the description to this video, so go grab that if you haven't already. Give you access also to my mailing list. And now that you have figured out what kind of city, whether it's alpha, beta, or gamma, is going to be the right fit for you, or at least you have some guidance on that, you should go and look at some of my other playlists, especially if you're new to my channel. First one is going to be a series of city vlogs that I make occasionally in the cities that I bring my clients to live the insider experience with me on our client. That's because I am known as the insider for this region by my clients. That actually is by application only. There's also an application form down below in the description. But first of all, you should go and look at these city vlogs on this playlist to give you a bit more sense of what is in store for you when you come here, what's the vibe going to be like. Second of all is my Vodkas series. There I go into a lot of detail in long form format, so be discerning. There's a lot of content there. Go scroll through it and pick out the episodes that appeal to you the most. And then thirdly, for the single guys that make up the bulk of my audience, this part of Europe is known for the beauty of the local female denizens of the region. So go and check out my set of tutorials basically for dating the beautiful, elegant, and highly educated women of this region with a great set of values. Well, I've given a great plug for the local lasses here. So on this beautiful late September evening, we're in the fall or autumn, and I have to say it is absolutely spectacular here if you're looking for this kind of old world charm. Peaceful. I have to say it also feels very safe at night when you walk around here, unlike a lot of cities that have also got beautiful architecture further to the west in Europe. That might be alpha cities, but you know, it's kind of a different vibe in terms of personal security. So different courses for different horses, as we say in English. On that note, ciao ciao from Vilnius, Lithuania.